I'm Patty Jo Angelini, Public Affairs Officer for Clatsop County.
I'm Jay Blake. I'm the county's planning manager. I work within the Community Development Department.
Well, thank you for joining us today, Jay. And I hear you have a special project you want to talk to us about. So can you give us an introduction to it?
Absolutely. The project is called the Economic Opportunities Analysis. And that's a very fancy way of saying we're doing a plan for the economy of the future for Clatsop County. This isn't the first time we've done this type of project. We've done it a couple of times in the past, but there's a lot of things happening in the world economy, the state economy, that are having impacts on us locally. And so it's time for us to take a look at it again to see what we can do to make place for better jobs in the future.
Can you talk a little bit more about the impacts that are facing Clatsop County, the national ones you mentioned, the state ones?
As a government employee for a number of years, I've always said the rules never get easier. And in fact, the rules almost always get more challenging. And that's really the case in terms of things related to FEMA, Federal Emergency Management Association. The FEMA organization is in charge of managing flood control around the country. And the FEMA organization is adopting some fairly stringent rules and regulations that are going to impact the developability of certain lands along the rivers and streams in Clatsop County, actually across the entire state of Oregon, but especially in Clatsop County because that's what we're working with. There's also some state changes with the adoption of the Habitat Conservation Plan, or HCP. It has the potential to create some financial impacts to the future revenues for several layers of local government, including schools and the county and the sheriff's department, et cetera. Those types of things are things that we don't have control over. They are just simply happening, and we need to react. I wish we had started reacting 25 years ago, but here we are at a point where there's a little bit of a need for us to rethink things, and that's what we're trying to do right now.
So the average person listening to this podcast, there's a survey you want people to complete. Can you talk about what the survey is about and why someone should take the time to complete it?
Great question. I think that the survey itself is more of a questionnaire. It's an opportunity for us to kind of take the pulse of the community with regards to economic development. Economic development is a very broad term, but in simple terms, it's jobs, it's the ability for people to gain wages and income. It is the ability for us to provide for our family, and it's those local jobs that we have that are near and dear to why we live on the coast. I think the survey gives us a sense of where do people want us to go? What do they want us to focus on? And we did a similar survey in 2004, about 20 years ago. And so we thought it would be a great chance to kind of see if things have changed or how they have changed. I know they have. So the survey is a fairly simple one. It's only 8 or 9 questions, and it's geared to anybody who is a resident, a visitor, or a business owner. And we're looking for all different perspectives, whether or not you are a lifelong Clatsop County person or if you are a recent adoptee to the community. I put it together because I wanted people to give us the base information. We're not going into the level of detail of like the census where it's 20 or 30 pages of very detailed information. It's more of like we're taking the temperature of the patient, if you will. We want to see what you're feeling about things like, is it easy to do work in Clatsop County? Is it difficult to do work? What sorts of things are preventing you from starting a new business? The questions are fairly straightforward, and I think they'll provide some insight on who's living here and doing business here.
So can you give us a snapshot of what is the Clatsop County economy like right now? And where would you like it to go?
Well, part of this whole process is for us to help find out what the entire community wants, not just your planning department that sits in an office, but who's actually out there driving on these highways and working in our different buildings. The Clatsop County economy is really based on what I've called the big three, not GM, Ford, and Chrysler, but fishing, forestry, and tourism. Those have been around for many, many years, and they are changing and constantly changing. Some of those federal rules related to development and some of the state laws related to development and infrastructure are having an impact on the ability of people to earn a solid living in those areas. And so we've got to look at what do we do to supplement or add to those base industries. Back in 1981, when we first did our economic plan, we said we should diversify our economy. We talked about the big three in 1981. In 2004, we talked about the big three and we said we really should diversify. In 2014, we talked about the big three and we said we should diversify. And guess what? We're now at 2024. And we've got some things happening to us which are going to force our hand, if you will, to diversify our economy, or at least try to provide new opportunities. The economy is also very, very different than it was in 1981. I mean, the internet has changed things dramatically, telecommunications, and the ability for us to live and work pretty much wherever we want is out there now. That was unheard of. My dad worked for an airline, so you had to live within a certain distance of the airport. Now, a lot of those types of employees can live anywhere and work remotely. And why not live in a beautiful place like Clatsop County? I know a lot of people who have moved to the area because of that and have that flexibility. The other thing that's changed in our economy is we still have the same roads that we had years and years ago. We had 101, we had 30, we had 26. Now they've made improvements to that, but that's the only way to get here. We don't have I-5. In fact, we don't have the railroads we used to have. We have an airport, but the airport is really a local service airport. It's not a regional hub for any sort of major cargo or economic activity other than what's out there right now. And so even though that has not changed, our world has changed. And the fact that everyone's driving on these same highways and causing the same traffic jams that we talked about 10 and 20 years ago, that's to me an indicator that it's time to do something.
So if you had a few minutes to convince someone to complete this survey, what would you say?
Your opinion matters. Not everybody's going to take the time, but please do. It really helps the people who are writing this get a true sense of what it is the community wants. I could write a plan in a half a day, but it wouldn't mean anything unless the public really wanted it. And I'm only one person. And the people on the technical advisory committee are only 30 people. But there's 42,000 people who call this place home, and thousands more that do business here, and tens of thousands of more who come here to visit. These people should have a voice in where the county goes forward. And it's important that our plans reflect those desires.
So how long do people have to complete the survey? And how do they get the survey?
The questionnaire is available on the county website, which is clatsopcounty.gov/ED. Economic Development is what it stands for. And there is both QR codes in English and Spanish, and there are also links in English and Spanish for people to go to the survey, complete the survey. And like I said, it shouldn't take more than 5 or 10 minutes. And the more people we have participating, the better off we will be. The more sense of control that people have, or the sense that people can buy into the direction that we're heading if they actually participate.
How can this plan help us have higher paying jobs in Clatsop County?
There's a couple things that we need to focus on. We need to focus on the jobs of the next century. The jobs of the last century are still going to be around, but you don't see a lot of people advertising for blacksmiths. You do see people advertising for GIS people or Geographic Information Systems people. You see people advertising for high-tech jobs. The jobs are changing. The community is changing. And so we need to move with that. That doesn't mean we ignore our history or ignore our traditional employment centers. They're part of the fabric. They're part of the tradition, the culture of our community. We can't be Clatsop County without talking about forestry and fishery and tourism. But we've also got to be ready to move to that next level. High-speed internet, new types of connecting businesses to the world. I know that in the little town of Garibaldi in Tillamook County, they recently went through a planning process where they had dozens of fishermen who were bringing in different types of fish and crab from the ocean, and it wasn't being used locally. It was being sold to higher bidders who were bringing it to some other place to process, and then it was being sold back to the restaurants in Tillamook County. They're trying to stop that or change that, create a vertical integration of, if you fish here, why not sell the fish here? Can we do that? Can we sell the fish, process the fish, and then eat the fish all in Clatsop County? That way, many different people can benefit from that work. And so we have to look differently at our economy. And not that we're going to get rid of those things, but we have to look at how can we add value and create economic opportunity in those areas plus in new areas. The other thing that small towns have issues with is what is often called brain drain, where people graduate from school and they go off some other place and they never come back. We have to make it so that people can get education here and stay here, or education, additional education, and come back here. And that's going to involve us having the right housing stock. And so the county's housing plans are going on at this point in time because of the housing crisis. All of these things are actually related. If you don't have a place to bring the doctor, to put him up in a house, you're not going to get the new doctor. If you are trying to hire an architect and they can't find a place to live, you're not going to be able to hire that architect. And so we've got to figure out the housing issue, and that's going to help us move the economy forward as well. This is a pretty special place, and we need to make sure that we're providing opportunities for not just us, but the next generation and the generation after that. And so this is our point. This is our moment. And I think this is our chance to really try to move the needle on the direction our county goes.
Thank you, Jay. I appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Thank you.